statewide. Only 37% of students at Stubbs were proficient in reading compared to the statewide average of 72%. This indicates that more than 60% of our students are not meeting the minimum academic standards as defined by the DCAT system. So again, I'll go off script for just one more moment. Given the presentation that we just saw, that there are alternate measures, multiple measures to get at that question. So back, what do you bring to the table to talk about how to do things differently? There's always different ways to get to success, always. Furthermore, too few students at the Christina priority schools are achieving their academic growth targets. 29% of students at Bancroft met their academic growth targets in reading last year, compared to 55% of students statewide. Results in prior years are not very different, and sometimes with a noticeable decline in student growth, as well as proficiency since 2011. This suggests that current initiatives and programs are not meeting or severely lacking for some, and frankly are not adequate to address all the needs of students in our care. The Priority Schools Initiative will invest nearly $6 million over the next 3 years directly into the 6 identified schools to implement turnaround plans to be developed by the schools and their communities for the sole purpose of improving outcomes for students. We hear criticism, and we've heard it tonight, that the money being invested is not enough to turn around performance in these schools. We actually agree with that. We certainly support strategic and sustainable investments in schools. But we have to draw attention to the fact that Christina School District did not fully utilize partnership zone funds allocated by the state and has recently declined opportunities to apply for supplemental state funding to support these schools. Is it not true that spending half of the PC allocation to Bancroft in 2012 happened, and the missed opportunity for the district to apply for $1.5 million in school improvement grants last year? I don't understand all the background, but the math, maybe you can help. It is widely accepted that building and sustaining high-performing schools require more than just dollars. It mandates a growth mindset that is being bold, not incremental. It requires high expectations for students, educators, and communities, a focus on student outcomes, and resilience to lead and manage change in often uncertain circumstances. And let me just say that resilience, based on what we just heard about the instability that was happening in certain schools, and that teachers have returned in record numbers and are still in the buildings after being made partnership zone schools several years ago. Again, the essence of what it takes to turn around schools and change the fate and outcome for the students is in this room. We know the work is challenging. Nonetheless, Delaware Public Schools have achieved extraordinary academic gains with high-need student populations or circumstances that are equally complex as what Christina priority schools are facing right now. Booker T. Washington Elementary, a 2012-14 focus school, hired an exemplary school principal in partnership with strong teacher leaders and developed a holistic after-school program that nearly eliminated an achievement gap from 50 to 10 points for their low-income student population. Howard High School, a 2011 partnership zone, has seen a 29% decrease in reading and a 39% decrease in math proficiency in most recent years via just going through significant shifts in its educational program and extensive community partnerships. Students at Lewis Dual Language Elementary, a 2012 PZ school, has seen double-digit gains in reading and math for the past 2 years. Positive Outcomes, which serves over 60% special needs students, completely revised their educational program and staffing after being named a PZ school in 2011 to result in gains of approximately 30% more students proficient in reading by 2014. Indian River School District takes on the challenge of serving the state's highest population of English language learners and the largest number of students living in rural poverty. Yet all of their elementary and middle schools are above state proficiency averages in math, and all are at above 70% proficiency in reading. Within the Christina School District, we see some of the highest performing elementary schools in the state. 78% of students are proficient in reading at Wilson Elementary, and 81% of students are proficient in math at Keene Elementary, both exceeding statewide averages in 2014. Christina is obviously positioned to build on these successes right here in your own district and leverage those proposed supports to readily adapt what is already working well within the district to dramatically improve student outcomes at priority schools in the city of Wilmington. These are proof points from public schools in Delaware that strong school leadership, highly engaged and accountable staff, innovative school programming, a culture of growth and high expectations are common elements under a variety of environments to deliver results for our children with the greatest needs. There is no denying that most students at Bancroft, Bayard, and Stubbs are struggling academically and have been for several years. There is no reason that should stay that way. There is compelling evidence that substantial improvements for all students are possible, but only with dramatically different approaches than those and some that are currently in place. We strongly urge you to engage with the Department of Education in partnership with parents, teachers, and the larger community toward an agreement on conditions for success. And I'll say this, the MOU is not a plan. It is not a strategy. It is a mutually agreed on conditions for success. And ultimately, the sole purpose of the Priority School Initiative is to improve outcomes for all students by strategically investing in schools, staff, and the community to yield substantial achievement gains. This requires your leadership, and we share the accountability to enable the first steps and move forward. The status quo is unacceptable, and Delaware's children are counting on us. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Great covering on the board member here. And I really just like to echo some of Dr. Gray's comments. It's definitely.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. So I'm Greg Coverdale. I'm a state board member, and I'd really like to echo some of Dr. Gray's comments. Nothing is perfect, but I think we have the energy in this room to really serve the best interests of our students. I would like to embrace and some of the comments of the councilman, staff at Bancroft. Drastic change calls for drastic measures, and I'm really an advocate for the flexibility and control that this plan will bring to the local level. And I think that's one of the advantages that the charters have over the traditional schools. So I really like to see the department and the school district come to agreement on something for the best interest of our children.
Thank you very much. Ms. Quinn, thank you very much. I'm unprecedented that you have taken the time to come here, listen to our community as well for the input. I do appreciate the time and an opportunity to hear common ground that we all have, different perceptions of how to get there and work together. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Mr. Ressler, I'd like to also echo your sentiments in terms of thanking them for coming up. I do, I appreciate the speech. I got to say, though, this phrase, there's one phrase in here that it kills me. I hear it all the time. It's status quo. The status quo is unacceptable. The status quo that's unacceptable to many people in this room is the tin-eared Department of Education that continues to ignore its communities, its boards, its people, it's all the citizens of this state. They stand on high and they bark orders and they say over and over again, great schools need great leaders, great schools need great leaders. Well, you know who needs great leaders? The DOE needs great leaders. And they need it now. And since he's appointed, I encourage all the voters in this state to make that happen by giving us a great leader in 2016 to run this state. So there's a lot of different status quos, and so I appreciate, but the educational reform movement has grabbed this term and nobody will push back on it. It's about time somebody pushed back on it. So you know what? I agree. We do need to work with the DOE. We do. Okay? I can buy that. I can totally buy Mr. Chukwoch's comments earlier tonight that we need to come up with some way of moving forward. But you know what? It has to start with the source of the power, as this gentleman here who's spoken with us twice in the last 2 years has said. It starts at the top. It starts at the top. They have the power. They have thrown down the gauntlet, and now I guarantee you, starting tomorrow morning, okay, the newspapers and the media outlets are going to be poised to begin attacking Christina. Okay, the Delaware DOE's PIO is here. They're already gathering all their information about what was said and what wasn't said. So I'm so very thrilled we have an audio tape to record what was said tonight, and everybody's going to know. Every board in this state should be recorded. The state board is, and thank you for that. It's extremely valuable. I really appreciate that, and I do thank you for coming out tonight. But please take that message of status quo back to your fellow board mates that there is some reflection needed on both sides. Thank you.
And there will be more time for board members without blocks. Let's take advantage of our public comment. Continuing on here, Mr. Kevin
Well, while he's coming in, I do want to thank Dr. King and Mr. Cardell for coming forward. I'm very much interested in hearing the voices of the children. We've heard the adults, and there are circumstances that we need to make an adjustment with. I'm hoping that the state board will work with us. Apparently, there's been some break with the Department of Education, but we need to have the state board on board as we fashion a resolution for where we are.
Kevin, did I get the first part of it?
Kevin Olay. Thank you for having me speak tonight. I'm here tonight to talk about the special education issue in the priority schools, which isn't something we've heard much about from the DOE. I live in Dover, but the issues here are just as important as they are in Capital School District. What happens with these priority schools will affect every single public school district in the state. If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. The Smarter Balanced Assessment is coming, and Secretary of Education Mark Murphy has already indicated he expects 70% of students to fail the test. But if this is what we base proficiency on, the test has already been determined to be a failure, not the students. How can we blame the schools, teachers, and students for this? If a test is that bad, how can the fate of our public school system rest on bad judgment thrust upon us by a governor who listens to the will of Rodell more than his own citizens? As you are well aware, there are over 300 students with disabilities with active IEPs in the priority schools. First of all, the formula designated for the priority schools is based on some data that is over 3 years old. It is designed to specifically target these 6 schools that are all within a mile of a charter school building in Rodney Square. How convenient. I don't think this was an accident. In point of fact, this is something I believe Governor Markell and the Delaware Department of Education want to have. Are we really going to send these children back to the hell some of them already escaped from? Sure, the charters will say they just didn't fit, or we weren't able to offer them services. But the DOE has allowed this to happen. The DOE board, not publicly elected, sit there in Dover and praise the charters without ever addressing the true problems. The charter's specified enrollment preference caters to the charter's needs and not the will of the public. So if you take all these children with disabilities and reject them because they don't fit your mold, and deny them entry or counsel them out, the result is why we are here tonight. This is triple segregation. They have disabilities, they are low income, and they are minorities. Let those words pause in the air for a moment. Triple segregation. But what will happen with these children who have disabilities they neither ask for nor want? Will their IEPs be adjusted for the upcoming changes? Has anyone in the DOE mentioned this in the MOU or the turnaround guide? What is happening is the DOE seems to be circumventing federal law with IDEA code. This is something the U.S. Department of Education is already being investigated on by members of the Education Committee in the U.S. Senate. Say Christina and rightfully agree to the MOU. The DOE has already indicated increased school hours and additional tutoring for the students of these schools. Has this been covered in the students' IEPs? I don't think so. Does state law trump federal law? I don't think so. Say the districts don't agree to the MOU. When will the great takeover begin? Any parent of a special needs child needs to understand how dangerous this situation is for special needs students and special education teachers. It's bad enough the DOE wants to insert Common Core into IEPs in their standards-based IEP agenda, but now they want to completely change the most important parts of IEPs, where choice is taken away from parents, and things like least restricted environment and free appropriate public education are turned into a joke under Mark Murphy's reign in Dover. The DOE has already put their chess pieces on the board. They hired a charter school transplant from California to add to the madness in Dover. Mrs. Schwinn, in the August Delaware Board of Education meeting, when asked about crime and murder in Wilmington by Mr. Coverdale, and how that affects the classroom, said, "That's not necessarily a hurdle to overcome." This is our chief proficiency officer saying this about this city. So you're going to trust their judgment? This needs to end, and it starts here tonight. This board, along with Road Play, can stop the madness coming from Dover. We can stop the state and federal intrusion on our public school districts. They want to dismantle the freedom we have and turn our children into Common Core zombies without any regard for their individual minds. We will not stand for this. From the top of the state to the bottom, every single student in the public school district is threatened by the likes of the Delaware DOE, Mark Murphy, Governor Markell, Rodell, Arnie Duncan, Vision, whatever the damn name is, and yes, the Delaware Charter School Network. Follow the money and see where it goes, because it is not going to the children of Delaware. It's going to data coaches and companies that are making great profit at the expense of the children of Delaware. Earlier, a gentleman spoke of corporate entities sponsoring our most needed schools. This is wrong, and we've already seen what happens when corporations get involved in schools. Common Core, RTI, Smarter Balanced Assessment, and the list goes on and on. My suggestion is simple. How about we stop teaching to the test and judge our schools, teachers, and students on actual grades based on summative and formative assessments in the classroom and stop this insanity. Thank you.
Thank you from coming all the way from Dover to come after school on behalf of our special ed children. You are exactly right. It is a triple threat. and you hit it right on the head. Thank you.
Sorry, before I even begin what I wrote, I kept adding notes as each person began to speak. And you've heard from several teachers tonight, and what knowledge, and what commitment, and what eloquence they brought to the meeting tonight. And I'd like to just ask the legislators that are in the room, when's the last time you heard a DOE employee speak with such knowledge and such clarity? And the fact that DOE is hiring data coaches for these people, I think they've got it down. I think they understand data. We can stop spending that money now. You've been asked to sign an MOU, which is not an MOU, but an ultimatum. Asked is a gentle word, of course, because in the MOU it states that if you do not sign, you relinquish rights to the schools. This MOU destroys teachers' rights and will cost the districts millions in monies that the new leader, whose salary will use most of the infused state money, can ask the district for. As a former board member, in times which were much more flush than these, I know exactly how much extra money the district has laying around to spend. As usual, after a mandate from the state, there has been a multitude of letters to the editor in support of the MOU. Not a surprise, of course, and I hope you haven't been swayed by this group of obviously biased opinions by those who love to tell us time is of the essence, so we must do this now, this Priority Schools program. But where have they been for the last 20 years when our schools have been struggling? Where were they after the Neighborhood Schools Act when city schools became resegregated? Where were they when PTAs in the city basically went bust because parents of children in poverty are unable to financially and otherwise support a PTA? Where were they when these two districts went through major financial crises causing district cuts? Where were they when the state went through its own financial crisis and cut the reading specialists and the math specialists? And why weren't they crying out in dismay when the state gifted several schools in the suburbs with Title I status and allocated Title I funding, in spite of the fact that they were educating less than 10% of children in poverty? Where were they? But now, they are all for the Priority School Plan, which will put in place a school leader who will supposedly turn these schools around. Where is the data that says a leader can turn a school around? Where? Because there is no reliable data where a teacher alone was able to turn a school around. There is none. Do these outside business groups, which are all part of the Rodell Vision Charter Ed 25 grouping, believe that a school leader can make all the difference because it makes them feel good, maybe? Because they're leaders in their businesses and their fields? Their fields, however, are not education. I believe that teachers make the difference. I do not expect, however, for teachers to work 70 hours a week in order to do so. As the daughter of a teacher, I don't remember a Sunday through Thursday night that my mom didn't have a pile of papers and books around her so she could grade papers or write lesson plans. That is the life of a teacher. They commonly work 50 plus hours a week. I'm assuming it's fair to say that you work at least 50 hours a week. The problem is, we just don't have enough of them. I don't see teachers in this MOU plan. No more teachers for priority schools. Do with what you will. I suggest you all put your heads together with Red Clay and come up with your own plan for your struggling schools. The superintendents, as school leaders who were chosen I'll bet you don't have a lot of them in there every day. When you put together a plan for success for these schools, make sure you do a financial report so that everyone understands the monetary needs of these schools. You should be asking for enough money for additional teachers to put your ratios at 13 to 1. Want these schools to do well, that I am sure the next state budget will reflect the needs of the children. After all, just a couple of years ago, and I know this well because I'm on this level, the state added $22 million to the state annual budget to go to private daycares to improve preschool readiness. Every year, that money is steered to private businesses. $22 million. That seems like a good first start for what you guys need additionally every year for your priority schools. And just as the administration has promised more money for early childhood, when that $22 million is no longer enough, I believe you should expect more for your schools in poverty as your needy populations increase in number. We should expect nothing less from a state which so obviously cares about its children. One speaker did ask that I wanted to add in, what other local government has no control over its schools? No local governments in the state, at least in Newcastle County, have control over its schools. I live in Newark. The city of Newark has no control over it. That's not an issue. I think it's a problem, but it's not. But it's not an issue that's particular to Wilmington. And as we remember, just today and yesterday, when Mayor Williams announced that while he appreciated the coalition of federal agencies to help with the problems of violence in Wilmington, he would under no circumstances give over control of his city to the feds. Neither should you give control over our district to the state. Mayor Williams knows his city better than the feds. And you know education better than anyone who has commented favorably about this ridiculous MOU.
Thank you. Next speaker is Sean Dwyer for State Representative Bombach.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Representative Mondax. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good evening. Representative Bombach sends his apologies for having to leave in another commitment a little earlier. My name is Sean Dwyer. I'm his legislative aide. I have a few comments to submit on his behalf. I'm just going to read this as though I was Rep. Bombach.
We'll critique you as you read.
Thank you. I addressed you at the board meeting earlier this month, urging you to reject this MOU. My position and my urging has not changed. I hold out the hope that the state DOE is able to change course and will engage the full community before thrusting an MOU before you to approve in such short time. Please recognize that I stand willing and able to work with you on our joint goal of delivering the best education possible for every student in the Christina School District. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank Mr. Bombach once again. Megan Howe.
I was an intended time giver. Give them the next cover up.
Are you sure?
It was before the 3-minute limit. I'm sure.
All right. Let's see what's in the next act part. Jennifer O'Brien.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer O'Brien, and I'm here to address the issue of commitment with regard to the proposed MOU issued by the Department of Education this month. The people who are best equipped to speak entourage is 8 years old, and surely they're all doing their homework tonight, so I will speak on their behalf, as we know they are what and who define the daily commitment made by my colleagues and myself. Let's start by asking, who is questioning the commitment of the teachers in the city of Wilmington? Is it anyone who can accurately assess that commitment? Where's the DOE and elected officials who have never spent a day, a week, or a month in our classrooms get the audacity to question the commitment made by myself and my colleagues? Please, please knock on my door at 9 p.m. as I'm grading papers, spy on me on either a Saturday or a Sunday as I'm building materials and plans for the week. Please inspect my laundry so you can find clothes that do not belong to my biological children. And lastly, inspect my grocery list so you can find a receipt so you can see the extras put in my cart. Commitment oneself to be present and observing 24/7 in discovering teachable moments. Look, I found an array right in my refrigerator. Commitment requires collaboration. I teach at Bancroft, and yes, 96% of the staff elected to return to the school and the community. We are a team. We demonstrate commitment to the children by our support of each other every day. Our parents are sending us the very best children they have, and we honor that by remaining committed to the future of their children every single day. My colleagues and I feel that our commitment has been defiled in the public eye by those who know of a raw score only, and we are angry about it. We feel betrayed by our own state agency and elected officials. We believe the commitment of our administration and the Christina School District to us is being unfairly usurped by a small few who simply do not know us. Has anyone asked them who we are and what we do? Can they answer? Thank you for taking our concerns to those who claim to be able to speak, to understand and ascertain our commitment. And when you speak to the DOE, Governor Markell, and Secretary Murphy, please tell them you're welcome. On behalf of the city teachers, you are welcome. Good night.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. I have a different perspective on my array here than I might. I'd like to recognize and thank City Councilwoman Sherry Walker-Dorsey. Sorry, I not started walking. Thank you very much for being here this evening. Our next speaker, Mike Kempsey.
My name is Mike Kempsey. I teach 6th grader social studies at Sheenville Middle School. I'm the president of Christina Education Association. I can't say how proud. Got tremendous. So decided to try to get out of the way of these educators tonight. A couple things I need to kind of reemphasize here. We saw commitment. We got the commitment part down. The other part is we're already successful right now. We're successful right now. And that success, you can see, and I think was even owned over here, that we can build on that success. And then the other part is we're committed to getting GSEA, President Rodriguez Jenner. We got Julie Harrington from GSEA and Kristen Dwyer. And I told you I've been going to Dover and throughout the county, getting support for you. And everyone is in this together, and we support you. Also, we got Mike Matthews. Mike Matthews is the president of Red Flag. He's just left his board meeting to come here to support us. All right, so just lastly, the request I have from the board. This board has an identity of being fierce advocates for students and the families of Christina. So all I'm asking you tonight is to be true to your identity and not support the MOU as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Appreciate it. Jackie Cook.
Good evening, school board members, Dr. Williams, and guests, fellow teachers. My name is Jackie Cook. I'm an educator in the Christina School District, where I'm in my 14th year of teaching agri-science. I'm also a parent of 2 current and 2 future students in the Red Clay School District. Furthermore, I am serving as the Vice President of the Christina Education Association. On all 3 counts, I have serious concerns about the state's intended implementation of this priority schools plan. If I might take a moment and go off script as well, if we're going to talk about money, the money that the state has taken away from us, let's not talk about the money we've left when there's $59,650,400 in funding that's been lost due to budget cuts. I read the state drafted MOUs in their entirety with a highlighter and pencil in hand. There is much with which to be concerned. On page 1, in the description of the planning statement of principles, the proposed MOU states, schools need time, structure, and support to develop powerful, coherent improvement plans. My note was, we're given no time or support, but it is important to also point out that we are being given no true autonomy, which number 2 explicitly states is necessary. The final line on page 1 is nothing if not a threat. If an MOU is not agreed to within 120 days, the LEA's options are then limited to closure, reopening as a charter, or contracting with a private management organization operating a school. When has the State Department of Education ever agreed to a Christina proposed MOU? Do you believe this time will be different? This is a power play, nothing more. Page 2, strategy must be based on solid evidence and include other elements determined by the Secretary that evidence shows supports great teaching and leading and dramatically improving student achievement. I have zero faith in the current Secretary of Education's ability to provide solid evidence of any of these things, especially given his track record of making decisions that directly contradict such evidence. And again, going off script, if Mark Murphy and JP Morgan can do it better, I say let them, but they can't. Why is the only codicil specifically referenced several times in this proposed MOU the second on human capital? In fact, it was true that the MOU does not mention teachers because they refer to teachers as human capital. The section that addresses requiring the district to comply with human capital provisions is in bold font, the only part that's in bold font, which means it's important to someone, not me. And it says that a satisfactory plan must include, that's a direct quote, implementation of these provisions. In my mind, that means we will never reach an agreement because I will never authorize my union or district leaders to sign away our hard-won collective bargaining rights or strip my members of their rights to due process and job security. human capital.
Amen.
They find it degrading and dehumanizing, but frankly, I believe that's the entire point. It's a heck of a lot easier to say make staff reapply for their jobs than to say Jackie Cook's family's livelihood should be at stake due to a wrong-headed, heavy-handed decision that makes no sense and has absolutely no backing and evidence for improving student achievement, which, by the way, is determined by a metric that has also been proven ineffective. This was 2 minutes and 59 seconds, you guys are fine. But I digress. The final point from the MOU that I would like to address is all the extra money and resources that the district is required to allocate to these priority schools, including what appear to be provisions for generous compensation packages for school leaders and staff upon successful completion of the exit plan. But we already know, because research shows that teachers aren't motivated by money. Aren't we projecting a significant financial shortfall in the coming school year? So what will we need to cut to fund this ridiculous expectation that is proven ineffective by research? Evidence. Secretary Murphy keeps using that word. I do not think it means what he thinks it means. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again, Daddy. Insurance for Bronski.
Good evening, I'm going to be brief. DOE wants to pay for outside leaders to come to our schools and fix them. They have over $1 million a year to spend on these leaders. In addition, they say the district's going to have to take on paying for any resources recommended by these school leaders. If you ask people in the schools or community if a high-priced outside leader will fix this situation, they'll disagree. If DOE has this money, they should ask our communities and schools how we think we can improve our schools. This money could be much better spent on resources to help our students and families in the community. Let's take care of the real problems instead of wasting money on an outsider who knows nothing about our children's needs. We've seen outsiders here before. You can ask Philadelphia how that worked for them too.
And New Orleans.
The Stevens School District needs to show once again that we are the leaders in the state in looking out for our children's needs. Let's reject the MOU because our children's needs should come first.
Patricia O'Connor.
I was going to donate my
process, but perhaps some of that conversation can happen. Those are the changes, those top-down changes, that this may be an opportunity to work on, but I don't know if it's going to be what he wishes, that this is going to be that chance he wishes for. I can't speak any more eloquently than who's come before me. In fact, the teacher brought out a lot of emotion to me when she talked about doing laundry for kids and buying extra food. That the percentages that we're seeing here of the transients and the special ed, those are part of the challenges, but another person who talked about the three areas of problems, disabilities, low income, and minority, I would go ahead and call them strikes. But anyway, I want to comment on one thing that was an anecdote. I was at the press conference, and I did talk to a person who lives near here. And what she had said was that part of this cycle downward for some of these schools come from the challenge of parents who can't have to pay for transportation to choice. So choice is shorter, those opportunities, plus the Neighborhood Schools Act, have actually raised the percentages of challenged kids in these schools. In these 6 schools, you have what is such a high percent of challenges that statistically it's really hard to move that needle. So I really think it's unfair to say that this is a problem of teaching. But I think it also has been said by many people in the room tonight that the problems, the easiest way to solve these problems is to do the 3 things, is to bring extra teaching in, extra paraprofessionals in, and changing the formula for funding. So the anecdote was this woman said that when the levels of funding were reduced for the districts, that they were held to these old formulas for funding, that they had to strip out, they had to make a choice for this, particularly about Warner, and that Warner was no longer able to afford its STEM and its gifted tag programming because it had to make a choice and fund special ed. I guess it'd be during units. So that said to me that was just one more way for parents who might want to contribute to the school, to the community, and send their kids there. They would not feel comfortable with that option. It doesn't say that the kids in these schools don't deserve that gifted program. There's plenty of them that are making these high scores and that do deserve that enrichment. But so in the flexibility, if they're going to offer us flexibility, that should be the flexibility. It should be in our funding. That should be the key, one of these key things that we reach out for and say, district, central district, that if you want to talk about reality, that's the reality we want to talk about, not just exchanging out teachers